Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the IotaVX SA-3 integrated amplifier. I was super interested in this amp for a few reasons, primarily because it's a budget amp. It's only 520 bucks for us in the US. It's a good looking amp, and you guys know I love good looking stuff. And it is hype beast as hell right now. A lot of people have reviewed this amp. A lot of people have said good things about this amp, and a lot of people are talking about it, so I had to get my hands on it. So we're just going to get into it. Tell you about its specs, kind of its noteworthy features, pros, cons, if there's anything I loved or hated about it, a little bit about what it sounds like, and a little bit about how it compares to another amp that's in a similar price category. So, specs, 45 watts times 2 at 8 ohms, 90 watts times 2 at 4 ohms. Those are both RMS figures. Wideband frequency response of 10 hertz to 100 kilohertz, plus or minus 3 decibels. It has 5 RCA inputs. It has one SPDIF coaxial, Toslink, Bluetooth, and phono. Note on the Bluetooth, it is an option, and it adds something like 40 bucks if you want that. It's got a mono subwoofer out. It also has main outs, so it can serve as a preamp only if you already have a power amp. And it's going to be 17 inches wide, only 2.3 inches tall, and only 9.4 inches deep. It is not very deep at all, guys. That's what she said. What else do we have here? It weighs 14 pounds, and its price is 399 pounds. Or for us in the US, like I said, as of today, $522. So, moving on. Noteworthy features. Full function remote, and what I mean by that is it's really got a full function remote. It's damn near full size. I would say this is full size. And I can adjust everything that I care to adjust from the comfort of my couch. That includes volume. It has a button just for dimming. Obviously, I can turn it on and off. I can mute it. I could change the line outputs. There's nothing I can't do. I mean, hell, it's got options for all kinds of future things that it doesn't even have, you know? So love that. Tone controls, big fan of that, especially on budget gear. A lot of people's rooms aren't perfect. A lot of times when you're on a budget, it's going to be hard to find stuff that's going to pair perfectly because you're not going to have the luxury of experimenting with like different speakers and like different amps and all kinds of stuff. So if your amp has tone controls, super helpful. The subwoofer output, big fan of that because I freaking love bass. Are you kidding me? Dimmable lights, also a big fan of that because I like to turn my lights off and kind of take a little nap when I listen to music sometimes. I'm going to show you how much it dims. After about the 5th level, it's going to look the same to you on camera, but I want you to know it is getting brighter, okay? It's just, you know, the camera can only pick up so much. I got a ton of light on me right now in this video. We got floodlights set up and all kinds of stuff. So looking at it right now, this is max brightness. So if I hit the dim button, it's going to go down to dim as much as possible. And it's dimming all of the lights, the light around the volume, the screen, the IotaVX logo, and the power button. I'm going to turn it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's max brightness. So, also another noteworthy feature, it does have a companion power amp. So if you've got speakers that are really hard to drive and you're just like super worried 45 watts a channel at 8 ohms isn't enough, or you plan on like upgrading and you want to know this thing can stay with you, it can stay with you. Its companion power amp is going to double its output power and is available for, I think, $400 US. I'll leave links. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to tell you about the sound now. So the top end, it's going to be slightly tilted up. I never felt like it was forward, bright, or harsh in any way. On the flip side, I never felt like it was overly smooth or incredibly smooth either. It just was good, it was detailed, and there's just a little bit more of it than usual. Very open sounding, good detail. And, you know, whatever words you want to use to describe detail, it has it. It's good, you know. The mid-range, you guys know it's hard for me to describe mid-range unless it's crazy colored, which this is not. The mid-range is not colored at all. Hell, the amp is not colored at all. It is super transparent, honestly. But there was one standout feature in the mid-range, and that is going to be its vocal performance, which was amazing. There was a lot of air and space around the vocals. It was almost as if the vocal performance, and it didn't matter the genre, male, female, whatever, it almost like the vocalist was just like a foot in front of the music or like separate from it. And I really, really enjoyed that. Moving on to the bass, it's strong I'm trying to say impactful over here. Holy crap. It is strong, impactful. In fact, so impactful, I prefer to use the tone controls and turn the bass down 1 dB. Not more than that, just 1 dB. It's good in every way, the bass. Is it as articulate as my $6,000 separates? No. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but same can be said for the top end. Is the top end as detailed as my $6,000 separates? No. Is it really, really good at 500 bucks and the best I've heard at 500 bucks? Hell yeah. So, moving on, pros and cons. So, pros, unheard of vocal performance at this price point. Never gets hot, I listed as a pro, because as you can see in the picture above where it's like open, there's a lot jam-packed in there. You know what I mean? You know, compared to like the Emotiva TA100, if you look up like a picture of that thing opened up, there's a lot of empty space. Look, I'm not an engineer, but I was kind of worried it might get a little warm. It doesn't even get a little warm to the touch, honestly. So you don't have to worry about that if you live in like Florida or something. Moving on, great Bluetooth performance. I actually specifically requested the Bluetooth transmitter be included with the review sample. By the way, this is a review sample if I didn't already say that. This is not a unit I bought with my own cold hard cash, which I do usually do. But anyways, I asked for this specifically because I'm a big fan of Bluetooth for the one reason that when you're looking at budget gear, I feel like a lot of people might not have the money to, you know, throw at a dedicated source right away. They might not be able to buy a network streamer. You know, the cheapest decent network streamer is about 500 bucks and it just goes up from there, you know what I mean? Granted, I guess some people might use their computers and stuff like that, but then still you need to buy an outboard DAC. Anyway, my point is this. When I was getting back into hi-fi 8 years ago, I didn't have a sound system. I was able to buy an integrated amp, a Bluetooth adapter, and a pair of speakers, all for about, you know, a few $100s. And my phone was the source because that's all I had. It's all I could afford. I already had this huge iTunes library and I just wanted to listen to it. I didn't have enough money in my pocket to be picky about, you know, the downsides of Bluetooth. But it is aptX, so it, you know, if you're an Android user, you can utilize that and get even better quality. Me, I'm an iPhone guy, so I'm stuck with the SBC codec, which is like the worst, but whatever. It did sound good. I enjoyed it, and if I was forced to only use the Bluetooth, I wouldn't be that bummed, honestly. It was super decent. Moving on. It plays well with all kinds of speakers, and I have a lot of speakers here, guys, and some of them are just crazy fussy, and this amp played well with all of them. What else do we have here? I listed the looks and the price as a pro. The looks, I guess that's subjective. I think it looks good. The price versus performance, without a doubt, a pro. Cons, there's no cons as far as the unit itself goes. The only con I could think of is some people might be annoyed that the price is going to fluctuate with the exchange rate if you're outside of England, but it is what it is. You're buying something from another country. Moving on, I'm going to tell you if there's anything I loved or hated. The point of this part of the review is what did I have an emotional reaction to? You know, this hobby is a little emotional, right? At least it is for me. Maybe I'm just a softie. Anyway, what I loved is the vocal presentation. Hell, I'm mentioning it for a third time now. I also loved its ability to get out of the way and let the speakers play. And what I'm talking about right here is this unit's ability to be super transparent, especially at this price point. So before getting my reference setup, which is about $6,000 just for the preamp and power amps, my speakers, you know, when I would plug them all in to like the same amp, they sounded different, don't get me wrong, but not like crazy different. They just sounded like a little different. But then when I got my reference gear, holy crap, my speakers sounded super different. You know, my Buchart S400s, when I plugged them in compared to Revel Concerto 2 M16, super different. You know, one is double the price of the other. It should sound super different. But on the cheaper gear, they didn't sound super different. On the cheaper gear, you could still tell which speaker was better and more expensive, but you had to like critically listen. You know, it wasn't as just obvious. This has that level of transparency like my reference setup does, where when I plug in my S400 sounds like my S400. When I plug in the Silverline Minuet Supreme Plus, wow, that's a long speaker name, it sounds like it's supposed to. When I plug in my ultra cheap Emotiva Airmotive B1 Pluses that I love to death, they sound the way they're supposed to sound. This doesn't impart its like own flavor on the speakers. It lets them sound the way they're supposed to sound. I so far have not heard this in this price category, so I love that. And by the way, just so we're clear, when I'm comparing like areas where this is really good and I'm talking about my reference gear, I'm not saying this is as good as my reference gear. Like, I just have to address that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is as good as my $6,000 like separates. That's kind of like crazy, right? Like, you would never say like, oh, a Toyota Camry is as good as a Mercedes-Benz S560. You'd be crazy to say that. It doesn't even make sense. Toyota Camry is a great car in its own right, though, and you can't take anything away from that. So yeah, anyways, what else do we have here that I listed that I loved is powerful sound and its auto off function. And what I mean by that is if you're like me and you live in a modern home where in some rooms like bathrooms, the lights turn off automatically, they have occupancy sensors, or in the garage, for example, or if you have like a newer TV that's going to, a lot of them turn themselves off now after a while. This does that. It's going to turn itself off after about something like 15 minutes. I didn't time it exactly, so I'm not 100% sure. But I like that because I got used to that auto off lifestyle because of my home. And when I'm done listening to music, I just leave the room and everything turns itself off. Super convenient. Now, there's a slight downside to that because there's no auto on. Once it senses music play again, it's not going to turn back on. It's not like a sleep or hibernate function. The auto off is, the amp is off. You have to grab the remote and turn it back on. So for those of you, if you're going to like pause your music and like hop on your phone for like 20 minutes, maybe you're DMing a chick or something, like it's going to turn off. You're going to have to turn it back on. But there's a remote, super convenient. That might be one of those things like I could definitely see some people maybe being like, I don't like that. I wish it wasn't like that. For me, I just like really liked it, honestly. Hate, there's nothing I hate. There just isn't. Overall, I wrote down I'm going to read this just 100% from the note card because I didn't want to get it wrong. Overall, this is a great sounding, full-featured integrated amp that's incredibly transparent, has great tone and vocal performance, great bass, and an overall presentation much larger than its 45 watts a channel would suggest. That is the best way I can describe it in a nutshell. It's good. It's a good amp. That's why so many people review it. I'm going to tell you guys a secret about people who review gear. For the most part, we review gear we like. I don't know about everyone, but I think for the most part, I mean, you watch like Steve Gutenberg's channel, it's like, you could tell he like really likes the gear. He's like super into it. If someone offered me to review something and like it didn't interest me, like I wouldn't do it. These reviews take time. Like I'm a busy person. I have a real job. Like I think most reviewers do. That's why I don't post that often. I'm not going to review something if it doesn't interest me. This really interested me for a lot of reasons. And like it's good, So real quick. Oh, there's one thing about the bass I did want to mention. I didn't put it on any of the note cards, but a slight warmth to it. Slight. Not big, not tubey, but slight. Especially compared to the amp I'm going to talk about, which is the Emotiva TA100. The reason I'm going to compare this to the Emotiva TA100 is they are really, really, really similar in a lot of ways. So they're both available, manufactured direct. They both have tone controls, remote controls, dimmers, subwoofer outs, main outs, Bluetooth modules as an option on both of them. This has a companion power amp. The TA100 doesn't necessarily have a specific companion power amp, but you can you can pair it with the matching A300 power amp, and it's going to be a stack just like this could be a stack. Super similar pricing. This is $500, the TA100 is $400. Now a note on that price difference. If we were talking about amps that were $3,000 and $3,100, $100, it's change at that point. But in this example, the $400 Emotiva TA100 compared to the $500 SA-3, depending on which direction you're going in, that's either 20 or 25% different. That's a huge difference. So keep that in mind with these next things I'm going to tell you. The vocal performance of the SA-3 is better. The transparency is better. It's less fussy. It's more open sounding in the top end and has a touch more refinement. It's going to impart less flavor onto the music. I guess I already mentioned that with the transparency. It has a better remote control, better Bluetooth performance, and even better binding posts. So it sounds like overall I'm saying it's better. I kind of am and I'm kind of not. I kind of am because I just listed all the reasons why it's better. I'm kind of not because that 20 to 25% price difference is kind of big. There's just not much else I could find in this price category. I was going to include the Denon PMA 400 and do like a little trio comparison, but then I found out I didn't have subwoofer output, which just totally broke my heart and made me absolutely lose interest in the amp. And like I said, if I'm not interested in gear, I'm not going to review it, you know? So there are two similar amps in features, I guess, and business models. Sound-wise, they are different. The Emotiva, like most Emotiva products, it's going to be a little bit on the cooler side. It's going to have a similarly slightly tilted up top end, just slightly not as open sounding. Their performance overall in sound is about $100 apart. It's really the best way I could say it. So it's really kind of, you know, it's the same as like anything when you're looking at like things in different prices. If you have the extra, get the better. If you don't, the $100 cheaper one is also really, really good. The TA100 is my personal amp. I owned it for many years. I still use it in a second system. It serves me well. It's like super good enough, you know. If I was like rebuying today, you know, today I make a little bit more money, I'd probably go with this, because to me that $100 difference is pretty small. But if that $100 difference is huge to you, hey, like don't beat yourself up, you know what I mean? Also, subscribers, commenters, whatever, if you have any ideas on what third amp I should include in talking about these amps in this price range, leave it in the comments. Don't say PS Audio Sprout. It's Class D. I don't want to review that. I'm not interested in it. And, you know, if I don't take your idea, like, sorry, you know what I mean? Most of the time I am buying stuff with my own money. Not many companies are super gracious to like just send me gear for free to review. I have to send it back, don't get me wrong, but like, still, like, I'm guessing IotaVX is probably, this cost them like 200 bucks. They have to ship it to me from England, and then they're going to pay for return shipping back. It's about 100 bucks for an item this size, you know? All right, guys, I think that about wraps it up. I don't think I can say anything else besides this. If you were on the fence about this, I'm going to link all the other reviews that I've watched on this amp that got me interested. And if you've already watched those and this is the last house on the block, maybe it's time you make a decision. Ask any questions in the comments, and if I can help you make a decision, that would make me happy. That's the whole point of this channel. Stop obsessing and make a decision. Until next time, later.